Hello everyone, welcome to the Economy Primer series of Drishti IAS. I am Ritu and today we are going to discuss very important topic which is 5 trillion dream. So before moving to the points of discussion part, first of all we will know that what is this new initiative. So Economy Primer is a new initiative of Drishti IAS in which we will deal with the economy topic. And this topic is very helpful for the UPSC aspirants and state civil services, and this is not just dedicated to the UPSC aspirant, it's also helpful for those who wants to know about the economy of India and the world. So moving to the points of discussion part. So first of all, we are going to discuss that why we have chosen this topic, and then we are going to discuss the background of this topic, and then inclusive growth, because without inclusive growth we can't discuss this topic, and then what are the challenges ahead of the inclusive growth, and then we will come to the conclusion part, and after that we will discuss practice question for prelims and mains. So moving to the discussion part, that why we have chosen this topic. So since this topic has been started, the discussion over the $5 trillion economy is not stopped, and we have taken few cutouts from the newspaper, and the first cutout says that budget 2023, India's $5 trillion economy dream confronts moribund MSME, focusing on roadmap to make India a $5 trillion economy, government development of UP necessary to make India a $5 trillion economy, Amit Shah, India's 5 trillion dream depends on your health. So these are the cutouts we have taken from the newspaper, which says that the discussion over $5 trillion economy has not stopped yet, and it's high time that we will discuss such topic, and this topic is very important for your prelims perspective and especially for your mains perspective. So moving to the next slide. Next slide is about that what is the background of this $5 trillion economy, since where this topic has been started. So in 2018 there was a World Economic Forum summit, and in that summit PM Modi was also invited, and he went there and he has given this speech, and in that speech he has said that India is set to become $5 trillion economy by 2025, and he had also invited investor to invest in India. And after that, when this discussion came into the news, so in 2019 budget speech, Nirmala Sitharaman had also said that $5 trillion economy dream is realizable. It means that it's achievable and we are able to achieve this dream by 2025. So from here this discussion has been started. So this is a brief background of $5 trillion economy. So moving to the next slide. Next slide is about that what is inclusive growth. So why we are here discussing inclusive growth? Because inclusive growth is an important element to achieve $5 trillion economy. So what is this inclusive growth? So in short, if we will know that there is an equal distribution of resources to all the strata of the society. So in short, this is called as inclusive growth. And what OECD had defined the inclusive growth. So according to the OECD, if there is a fair distribution of the resources among all the masses, and equitable resources should be given to the all strata of the society, it means the lower strata, the middle strata and the upper strata. This is called as an inclusive growth. So this is the brief definition of the inclusive growth. Moving to the elements of the inclusive growth. So what are the elements we have for the inclusive growth? So the first is the skill development. Second is financial inclusion, technological advancement, because in this digital world, technological advancements is very much important. Then economic growth. This is very much important for any inclusive growth. And then development and social development and governance are the important factor for any inclusive growth. So this thing is very much important. Coming to the first slide, which is dedicated to the skill development. So skill development has highly in discussion, and since this Modi government has came, the skill development is so much debated, so much discussed, and so many youths are also interested in the skill development. So we will take a report. So according to India Skill Report 2023, so we have taken the latest data. What is the employability rate among the youth? So earlier it was 46.2% and right now we have 50.3%. So what we are seeing here, that this is a very positive growth. And coming to that women and men employability rate, so this is a very good news for us that women employability rate has been improved and it is 52.8% in comparison to men, which is 47.2%. So this is very positive news for the men and women. But what happens that when you imagine an ideal society, then it should be equal. But it's very important for this women that their employability rate is improving day by day. So this is brief about that skill development, but it's a challenge for India that, with this data, we are able to achieve inclusive growth, or we are able to achieve this $5 trillion dream or not. So this is a matter of debate and much research that we are able to achieve with this growth or not. So moving to the next slide. Next slide is about financial inclusion. So financial inclusion means that, financial independence and financial liberty to all the classes, to the vulnerable groups of the society. So this is a brief definition of the financial inclusion. And what are the parameters for the financial inclusion? So we have this age, income, gender, and education. And you know what it does? So it promotes the culture of the saving. So this time it's very important to discuss the financial inclusion, and Government of India has announced various policies, various schemes related to the financial inclusion. It had opened account of various people, and they are carrying so many bank accounts, so many schemes are running for the financial inclusion. So moving to the index part, so what the RBI says about this thing. So RBI has introduced an index whose name is Financial Inclusion Index, and according to that index, the index has been measured on 3 parameters. We have this access, usage, and quality. So how much we are accessible? So we are 35% accessible, usage is 45%, and the quality is 20%. So it's also a matter of debate and discussion that, with this data we are able to achieve 5 trillion dream or not, because when we come to the quality it is just 20%, and when we come to the access it is just 35%. So this is also a worrisome situation for India, that with this data we are able to achieve our dream or not. So this is the brief about the financial inclusion index, that, how with this data and what these data are showing, that this dream is realizable or not, and if it's realizable, we are able to achieve it by time or not. So moving to the next slide. Next slide is about the technological advancement. So we already know that this era belongs to the digital economy, digital infrastructure. And in this era, it's high time to discuss about the technological advancement. And it is highly needed in every area, along with the manufacturing, agriculture, education, every era. So this time we have this discussion of Industrial Revolution 2.0 or 4.0. But right now, what is the age? So this age belongs to the Industrial Revolution 4.0. And what are the parameters of Industrial Revolution 4.0? The first parameter is AI, AM, robotics. So these are the parameters of the Industrial 4.0, and we are improving very much into this, but this is also a problem for us, that there is a digital divide in this country. And what are the parameters for the digital divide? So we have this rural versus urban, male versus female, then south versus north. So these are the parameters for the linguistic divide. And our country's population, most of the 70% population lives in the rural India. But what is the usage number from the rural India? So the usage from the internet of rural India is very low. It is 400 million. So it is not according to the population and whatever the demand of the population. Coming to the male and female digital divide. So generally we have seen that, female are the less user of the internet. They don't have much accessible internet. So this is also a worrisome situation for India, that our women population consists of 50%, but their usage is very low. So this type of problems we have in front of the digital divide and digital revolution. So this is also makes a question and marks a very important question, that with these kind of problems we are able to achieve our dream or not. So moving to the next slide. Next slide is about economic growth. So this is one of the best and important parameters to know about the inclusive growth. So what are the economic growth for now? So according to the World Bank data, the current economic growth is 7.2%, which is a very positive trend, because after pandemic this growth is very much and positive news and very good news for us. But it's also raised a question that we have able to achieve this growth by 7.2%, and according to RBI calculation, our pre-pandemic economic level we will be achieved by 2035. It means that our target for the $5 trillion economy is 2025. So what we are seeing here, that there is a 10 years of the gap. between 2025 to 2035. So in this scenario, it's also create a very important question that we are able to achieve our dream or not. And if we are able to achieve, then we may cross this 2025 line, because in 2 years it's very difficult to achieve this kind of dream. Because when India made this promise and when India announced that we are able to become $5 trillion economy by 2025, at that time the size of the economy is 2.75 trillion, and right now we have the size of the economy of 3.75 trillion. So we have just only 2 years left, and in these 2 years we are able to achieve $2 trillion economy or not. So this is also a question, because from 3.75 to 5 trillion in 2 years, it's very hard to reach into this kind of the aim. So this is also problematic for us. So moving to the next slide. Next slide is about the social development. So it is said that without the development of the population and without the development of the most marginalized section of the society, we cannot imagine the inclusive growth. So it's very important for the development of the marginalized section of the society, and who are marginalized in this country. So we are SC, ST, OBC, minorities, women and transgender. So their development is very much important for the development of inclusive growth, for the development of $5 trillion economy. But when we come to the data part, so in 2023 budget, what we have seen that only 1.4% of the GDP has been spent on the social protection. So it's very important to socially protect all the socially vulnerable and economically vulnerable classes. And with this much of spend, this is very problematic for us to reach to that kind of the level. So it's very important for any government to mark its population, to care its most vulnerable population, because without their development, the development of this country is not possible. Because most of the time we have seen that, recently we have seen the caste data of Bihar, where we have seen that marginalized section belongs to the 80% of the total population. Similarly, we have more than 70% of this population who are marginalized. So their development is very much necessary. So in order to achieve this dream, the social development is a crucial aspect for any country. So moving to the next slide. Next slide is about the schemes for inclusive growth. So we have several schemes. We will not discuss all these schemes in a detail. So the government of India has introduced various schemes for the development of the economy, for the development of the inclusive growth. So these are the schemes. So you will have a brief about this scheme, that why these schemes are important. So it can come in your prelims examination. So these are the schemes, so you can check out. So moving to the challenges part. So we already had discussed that there are various parameters to judge our economy, to know our economy, and we had discussed in a detail what is the inclusive growth and what are the different elements of the inclusive growth. Coming to the challenges part, so we will discuss this challenge later, but first challenge what we have. So we have this pandemic 3 years back, and that had ruptured various economies of the world, including India also. But India is able to recover its economy, and right now our growth rate is very much significant. It is 7.2%, and India had recovered in a V-shaped manner. So V-shaped recovery is a very much important for India. So we have this pandemic problem, and the second problem right now we have is the Russia-Ukraine war, and then Israel-Palestinian war. So you may wonder that Russia-Ukraine war is happening in Europe and Israel-Palestinian war is happening in Middle East. Then what is the impact on India and why Indian economy is affected by it? So the first of all is that Indian diaspora is very much prevalent in all these countries, like Russia also, Ukraine also, Palestine also, and Israel also. And because of the war, especially in Russia-Ukraine war, we have seen that our supply side has been hardly affected and it is highly affected. And because of all these things, our economy is also in a very decline condition. And coming to the Israel-Palestinian issue, most of the diaspora works there, and Israel is a very good trading partner of the India, and because of that our trade is affected. So in this way our economy is also affected. Coming to the pandemic, so we already had discussed that what RBI calculation says. So RBI calculation says that we are able to achieve pre-pandemic level economy by 2035. So these are the obstacles and challenges we have in front of the $5 trillion economy. So coming to these challenges, so we have all these social challenges. The first challenge is the poverty. So according to Niti Aayog multidimensional index, we have 14.96% of the population who are living below poverty line. So these are the one of the most important challenges we have in front of our economy. Coming to the unemployment rate, so we already had discussed that pandemic had affected a lot, especially the unemployment and agriculture area. So according to CMI report, we have 7.95% who are unemployed. And then coming to the agriculture backwardness, so according to the World Bank data, the 15% of the economy can be gathered from the agriculture. And how much population is dependent on the agriculture? So almost we have 70% of the population who are dependent on the agriculture and who are overemployed in the agriculture sector. So these are the problems and these are the factors that our agriculture is backward. And what are the factors for the agriculture backwardness? The first is the overemployability. The second is the not good weather. Climatic change are also affecting the agriculture backwardness. And then we are also technologically backward in terms of the agriculture. So these are the factors we are making our agriculture backward. And these are the one of the most biggest loopholes for this country, because 70% of its population is dependent on the agriculture and they are just contributing 15% of the economy. So this inappropriation of the economy share is very much crucial for this kind of the problems. Coming to the third issues, which is issues with the social development. So we already had discussed that without social development we are not able to achieve the economic development. So these social development and economic development, they both are interlinked with each other. And according to SDI Index 2023, India ranks 132 out of 191 countries, and it had ranked below from various South Asian countries. So this is also a problematic situation for India, that with these kind of indexes and with these kind of the ranking, how we are thinking to achieve our $5 trillion economy if our most of the population are not happy, most of the population are not empowered. So this is also problematic for India. Coming to the regional disparities, so we often heard this north versus south, rural versus urban. So in India we have 57% of the regional disparities, and so many northern states are saying that because of South is taking so much advantage to us, and southern states are saying that because of the northern state the whole economy of India is compromised, because our population is less, we are producing more, we are contributing more to the economy, and because of their high amount of the population, high amount of the poverty rate, unemployment rate, the overall India's GDP is affected by it. So these are the challenges we have in front of the inclusive growth and in front of to achieve our $5 trillion economy. So moving to the next slide is conclusion. So what conclusion we have from all these discussions? So we already know that this $5 trillion economy dream is achievable, but we should also check and we should also research that by 2025 this dream is achievable or not. So coming to the conclusion part, so whatever data and whatever the factors we have discussed, so it has been analyzed that by 2025 we are not able to achieve this dream. We are able to achieve this dream, but it may take 2 to 3 years to achieve this kind of the dream. So this will be the conclusion that maybe we can cross this time period. And why we will cross this time period? Because there are many areas we have to work. There are climate change problem, there are poverty problem, social development issues, we have caste discrimination in the country, we have the class diversification, language barriers. So these are the problems which are affecting India to economically grow. So you may wonder that why we are discussing here caste discrimination, class differentiation, regional disparities, because these are the social factors, and we have this inappropriate distribution of land in this country. It means that upper caste, who consist hardly 15 to 17%, they are gathering 80% of the land of this country, and the lower caste, who are more than 80% of this population, they have just 20% of the land. So these are the unequal distribution of land in this country. And then coming to the another kind of the report and another kind of the data, that rich are getting richer and poor are getting more poorer. And according to a data and according to a report, what we have analyzed, that 1% of the Indian population consists 51% of the wealth of this country, and rest 99% consist 49% of the wealth. So these inequalities should be reduced. So this is the conclusion we have, and if we are able to achieve these kind of reduced inequality level, then we are able to think of the $5 trillion economy. And for that we have to work hard in this area. And there are various programs which has been launched by the government of India and which has been launched by the state governments in order to achieve the inclusive growth, but these programs are not aligned with each other. So it's high time that these programs should align with each other, and they should be designed with the needs of the people. And we have several schemes. We already had discussed brief about the scheme, that we have various schemes related for the inclusive growth and social development of the people, but we have this faulty implementation. So all those schemes who are designed for the development of the people should be implemented very strictly and should be given to those who are the needy, who are the actual beneficiary of those schemes. So the corruption should be omitted from the society. There should be less number of inequality. We are able to achieve equality, then we will think about the $5 trillion economy. So there are a lot of area where we have to work, and where central government had to work with the various state government, and they had to look for the most poorest states who are in the most vulnerable conditions, especially the northeastern state, the eastern state, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Odisha. So they had to look for all these states who are in most vulnerable condition. They had to look for their resources. We have also this problem that we have much young population in this country, but we are not utilizing their full resources. We have huge adult population in this country, but we are not able to use their resources also. So the government of India should design program so that they can take out resources from every strata, from every age group. So these are the way forward for in order to achieve the inclusive growth, in order to achieve our dream $5 trillion economy. So this is the conclusion. Moving to the next slide. Next slide is related to the practice question for prelims, and the question is related to the Atal Pension Yojana, because this pension has been designed to achieve the inclusive growth. And your first statement is the scheme was launched in 2018, and your second statement is the age of the subscriber should be between 18 to 40 years. Here they are asking the correct statement, so you have to answer in the comment section. Coming to the mains part. So the mains question is, sustained and inclusive economic growth is a prerequisite for sustainable development, comment. Here you have to answer this into the 150 words. So here they are asking two words. The first is the inclusive economic growth, and second is the sustainable development. So you have to briefly define these two words in 1 or 2 lines, because the demand of the answer is just 150 words. So maybe you can extend to 180 words or 200 words, but not more than that. So you have to briefly define that what is sustainable development and what is inclusive growth. So we already had discussed that what is inclusive growth. It is the fair distribution of resources among all the strata of the society. And then coming to the sustainable development, it means that you utilize the resources, but the resources utilization should be optimal, and the future generation should be also taken care of. So this is a brief definition of the sustainable development. Coming to that, how these things are correlational in nature. So we have this SDGs program, 17 SDGs goals. So government of India had introduced various measures for it, but that measures has been not implemented carefully. So the careful implementation of all those measures who are able to achieve the SDGs goals should be implemented very carefully and very strictly, so that we are able to achieve this sustainable development goals, and we are able to achieve this inclusive growth. And with these two factors, we are able to achieve our $5 trillion economy dream. So I hope you like this lecture. If you have any queries related to this lecture, kindly ask in the comment section. Thank you.